fee is gonna be too high.
I agree.
And
I
we
think I
had-
said that off the get-go.
Yeah.
That's too high.
We had talked about that too, and finance, like, they did the math, and they had decided that it was $3.15, I think, for Braden to move that per kilometer. So his recommendation was to leave it at $3.
I know what the recommendation is, but if they're just sitting here
Yeah.
and nothing's being used, because we're all of a sudden start charging too much
Yeah.
for the transportation.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, and so I don't want to necessarily pit counselors versus counselors, but, certainly as the Ag Service Board counselors, when the master rates bylaw comes up, I think these are and you did it in the past, and this is the concern you need to raise, and then come to some sort of a consensus, or at least figure out what the majority of council is willing to settle on. But these are the discussions and the debate that you'll need to have when the master rates bylaw comes forward on Tuesday, because, I think administration, all they tried to do was, again, try to figure out and analyze what is the, a cost recovery rate. And then I guess it's up to council to decide, whether to raise or decrease that rate based on, what the analysis kind of determined. But, it's a very political conversation.
Yeah, because I just think about that. If you're going to seed 100 acres, you're $1,150 plus $600, so you might as well get it custom seeded.
And the machines are gonna be sitting.
Yeah, and that's even the same with the rollers going up another dollar or two. Like $5 for $5 an acre for a 20-foot roller is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
I custom roll for $5 an acre.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's your fuel and everything, manpower. I mean, we're pricing ourselves out. So I know what Jeff is getting at, and thank you for that. But we got, as council members, we got to look at it and say, are we cost recovery? Are we going to be doing it on all water, on every issue? Then, because I mean, we're starting to pick here on the ag quite heavily, and all of that equipment and everything is going to be sitting where. What are we doing here? And I also got another part of my question. Why I still got the mic on. Are we still in contact with the base? Because I know in the past there at Pipeline Grazing, we have spent, that 1 year our bill was over $12,000 for spraying baby's breath, and it's coming out of the base, right across the, let's call it the north boundary road or south boundary road out of the base, or whatever you want to call it. That we're still in contact with the base, that they're doing their job over there to help prevent the spread of these weeds, because it's just blowing across into us, and then now we're paying for it of spraying. And that 1 year we got that outfit in out of Brooks, and we did the whole quarter section. It was a big sprayer, and it cost us $12,000 to do it. And now since then, I believe the staff has been out there doing spot checks on certain areas there in our grazing lease, but that we still stay in contact with the base to make sure they're doing their part.
Yeah, I feel like I know somebody who gave, maybe not gave me a contact, but has the information for a contact out there, so I will look into that and see if I can speak with somebody just to see what their program is going, forward for this year.
I believe you should make that a motion.
When it comes, I'll make the motion, and after we're done discussing this part of the agenda.
Go ahead,
Back to
Josh.
the master rates bylaw stuff, can we make a recommendation to council to change the delivery fee, or is that a councilor thing? That has to be decided at council.
The Ag Service Board can make a recommendation to council.
So is that something that we want to do to help put some weight behind it?
Yep.
And how do we do that now, Jeffrey, with this coming to council tomorrow?
It'll
Is
just have to
that-
get brought up
you
by
guys just-
Jeffrey or the ASB members
Right,
during the
yeah,
council meeting.
it would be appropriate, and that's kind of what I was alluding to, it would be appropriate, and I know Blaine has a comment that he wanted to make, so I won't take up too much here, but Yeah, it would be appropriate when the bylaw comes forward for readings that one of the Ag Service Board council members basically says that they would like to revisit or discuss certain fees in the master rates bylaw, and then the master rates bylaw can be either further amended as part of the readings, or council can say to administration to make further changes and bring it back to a future council meeting with the recommended, or with more amendments for council's considerations. So that's how the process would work.
I just want something for clarification. So this transportation fee, when somebody rents something, are we under the obligation to deliver it, or can somebody that's renting it take it themselves? I don't know how that works.
We deliver it the way it's set
We
up
have,
currently.
like, we have to deliver it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's just all I wanted to know.
And I can't remember, we looked into insurance on that, and that's the reason we left it right, Jeffrey?
And maybe Lisa and her staff can explain, just for Blaine's benefit, the rationale behind why the preference is for ag staff to pick it up and deliver it. So maybe comment.
So we do deliver the seed drills and the land rollers. Everything else pretty much can be somebody else picking up, but yeah, so anything that we do deliver would have that fee attached to it, of course. And yeah, like we've had seed drills in the past that required a heavy truck, and we would even need the water tank full as well to be able to move those things. So it just wasn't maybe safe or in the best interest of somebody else to be moving them, and specifically going through the city and stuff, and we would have to take them over that way and that sort of thing too. So anything else, Braden? Or?
Yeah, it makes scheduling a lot easier if I just can schedule around. I gotta go here and then I gotta take it here, rather than, oh, they gotta bring it back before I can take it to somebody else type thing. I just think it would be tricky to schedule if it was pickup as well.
No,
And I think one of the other benefits, if I could, Mr. Chairman, just to add, is when staff picks up the equipment, then they also give it a quick inspection to make sure that if there's anything that's obvious that needs repair or whatever, so that because that way then the next renter who's getting it under the terms that it's fully operational and functional is actually getting a functioning machine, right? And not something that is damaged or needs immediate attention.
Good point.
I would make the motion that we put a cap of $250 to transport the seed drill and the land roller.
And leave it at $3, but cap it at $250
Yeah, but yeah,
altogether.
altogether, both ways. A cap of $250 to transport both ways.
Go ahead, Josh.
Instead of that, is there a way to build that cost into the per acre? Like if you added another 25 cents into the per acre, another 50 cents, then that recapture cost is hidden a little bit in the per acre thing, and you're not going to have the blowback on a separate cost.
And if some people do 100 acres and some people do 5, it pretty much makes it up across the board if you guy does it that way.
Then there's just not a separate transportation fee on there, and they say, well, why can't I come get it? This way it's built into the user fee, and we can recoup some of the costs of that.
What do the seed drills do on average a year?
Last year it was, go ahead.
I think last year one was 1,600 and the other was 1,000, 1,200. So probably almost 3,000 a year.
So yeah, if we add, well, it's $2,800. So if you take and add 50 cents, you're $1,400. That, I don't know if that would, it would never make up the same as what that $3 a kilometer makes, I'll tell you that.
But how many, on them acres though, how many people? How many times was it? I mean, that's, you know, if everybody's doing 100 acres or 50 acres, you know, then it's more times out.
There was 40 renters last year, and, but I don't know.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, and I think thank you. The difficulty in doing an on-the-spot calculation is, and get it relatively accurate or something that would be reasonable, that would be palatable, to find that balance between some cost recovery, but at the same time still making it palatable, or good enough for that the people still want to rent it and fulfill the purpose of having the equipment, right? And that's your concern, Shane, and it's, I think, all of our concerns. So maybe what the recommendation tomorrow could be is to maybe postpone passing at least that portion of the master race bylaw, or bring it back one more time, just to allow administration to actually do some more calculations to try and reflect if we were to build that delivery cost, like Josh is suggesting, into the rental charge on a per acre basis, and then that way, it gives everybody a little bit more opportunity to come up with something that's maybe a little bit more accurate or realistic, and then come back. So that might be a consideration for the council members tomorrow. But unless Dustin's confident he can come up with something on the spot, but
I probably could.
I know you could. So, but that puts a lot of pressure on it.
Yeah,
I don't want to do that to any one individual here. So.
Okay, well, and I can think about that tonight, and I might be able to have something by tomorrow. So, but we'll bring it up tomorrow. So, Connie, do you want to just make your motion state that we'll address it? That's not a good, that we have to do something with the transportation rate instead, and yeah, and also to remove gopher poison off of there.
Yeah, I asked about that, and they just feel like it's okay to leave it on just in case there's ever something else brought in.
Okay.
And then, so I guess, back to the prohibited noxious weeds, if you're okay with leaving it on there and charging a fee for that, that's fine, but if not, then that has to be addressed tomorrow as well, just, so you know.
We have any comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in Brazeau County, we helped some farmers out as well, and some of them started to take advantage of it, so I would say it's their responsibility to look after the weeds on their own property, so I'm in favor of that.
Okay.
At $40 an hour to come get some of this spray my noxious weeds, and I don't have to, I'm very interested all of a sudden.
Yeah, and like, I don't know what people's thoughts are, that, who have been using the program before, right? What they're gonna think about it, I think of somebody down south who lives on a creek, and we pick weeds there because it's close to a creek, you can't spray, and they used to pick, and I think they've given up already because we go in year after year after year, and it doesn't make much difference. So now we're gonna know that these weeds are out there, and people may not be dealing with them, so then it's gonna be weed notices and stuff like that as well. So then it could be, back to us, and then and that's fine, but we
Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, by the creeks and that, you should get a hold of Cardston County, because when we were down at the Ag Service Board Southern Region Conference, Cardston County put on a good little thing about their spraying.
He did.
And their trucks, they're side-by-sides that they use, and showing the one guy getting stuck in the river with it. Stuff, but they're spraying all over, so they can get into they got the machines for doing it in tough areas to try to control it in places, because they're, they got more rivers than we do,
Yeah.
where it's coming out of and coming up from. So yeah, I would check with them.
Go ahead, Connie.
I also see number H on the noxious weed control it says, what does it say? I just had it. Oh, number I, letter I, only the ag supervisor or the assistant ag fieldman will issue weed notices. So you don't allow the weed inspectors to issue notices?
No, I think that comes right out of the act, that it has to be the egg fieldman.
Okay. Because the weed inspectors used to do it.
Okay. Like, they do the
Okay.
reports and stuff. Yeah, we could look into it again, double check.
Yeah. It's been a long time, so.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? So Connie's moving to revisit the transportation rate in the master rates bylaw?
I'm looking at a cap versus looking at increasing the rental rate. A cap versus the rental.
I think we're better off to leave it open and see what comes back.
Okay,
Yeah, getting technical just confines people, so. Okay, any other questions? Well, we'll vote on this one first. All in favor? Carried. And then Shane's got another motion about Suffield?
Staff to stay, be in touch with CFP Suffield, make sure that they are continuing on with the spraying program too, for noxious weeds around their borders.
Okay, all in favor of that? Carried. Richardson Ground Groups, gopher control. Talking on my tongue today.
Okay, so now that strychnine is no longer, we've been looking into other available options. And there's only a few that are registered for Richardson's ground squirrels in Canada, and they're often hard to find for some reason. So we're kind of working with a local retailer, just looking into finding something that we can offer people, whether that would be through the county or just you say like, hey, you can go to the retailer and find it there type thing. So, and in speaking with Jamie Meeks down from the county of Warner, he and Phil Merrill, like he was the pest control specialist for Alberta there for a number of years, and they did trials down there a few years ago with all of these products. And by far, Rosal is the favorite, and thankfully it's available. So it's similar to strychnine in that you are putting it down holes and active burrows and that sort of thing. And we often hear that they have to eat it 2 to 3 times for it to be effective. But Jamie says that if you use it now, like when it's so beautiful out, if it's out now and then they start popping their heads up, their bellies are empty, there's nothing else to eat, and it'll work with one feeding. So I think the key, even with strychnine, that was always the problem. It was always used too late. So it's to get them now before the females have babies and that sort of thing. So it's just going to be educating people on that, is getting it out as soon as possible. So anyway, Rosal seems to be the best option, and it's available locally, so it's something that we wouldn't carry to offer people, because then we would be taking business away from businesses. Ground Force is the same thing, but it's in smaller packages and that sort of thing. Also, the Rosal can be used later in the season if it's put in bait traps and, that sort of thing, old delineators or PVC pipe or something like that. Once the gophers are used to those contraptions being around, then they love it. So, and, in and out and that sort of thing. So then they would be munching on that as they go too. So, Ramit Green, he said that was very disappointing. There wasn't much good to say about it, really. Thorhild County up north of Edmonton has 25 pails. Well, last week they did for sale. They used it in hamlets and say that they got rid of all their critters. So I don't know if they don't expect to have any more coming in or what, but they're getting rid of some there. If we were interested, because apparently that's very, very hard to find. He got it from a place in Drumheller, and that seems to be the only retailer kind of around, I guess, if he's getting it from north of Edmonton from Drumheller. So, and then the burrow bait and ZP rodent bait, so that's zinc phosphide, and that's more of a gas, like it'll react with the acid and in their stomachs and moisture kind of thing, and that would be a lethal dose in one feeding type thing as well. Sometimes that's iffy, you'd have to close up the burrows possibly, and more like a phostoxin for grain bins. It's a gas, it's you know, a little bit different, so works with warmth as well, so that wouldn't work right now because nights are too cold and that sort of thing, and all that. So works great when you're, you know, 20-degree days and that sort of thing, but just wasn't the most ideal, I guess. I do think that that one is available to be ordered though. And then, of course, Rokon, we have the applicator for that concentrate. And I ordered a bunch of concentrate last year, and now when I look for the website this year, it's gone. So kind of bad timing on their part. But that was, you know, kind of a good option for in town and that sort of thing too, maybe smaller acreages or something like that. But and then, of course, like just something different is the Raptor platforms or you know, stuff like that Equus has programs for, so they can help with that if anybody would be interested in that too. But and then another thing here too, when I was looking into some of the chemical controls, that many of these products now have expiry dates on their registration of December 2022, 23, and 24. So according to the PMRA, there's going to be a cluster. So all of those products are up for review starting in March. So it's hard to say what is going to come of that. They could all be taken away. They could all be okay and registration renewed. It's hard to say. So. And then something else that they had mentioned to keep in mind was the new directive that came in effect in December of 2021, is that they can just cancel a registration immediately. So rather, you know, like the strychnine, it was phased out over 3 years. They can just decide, no, it's not safe anymore, so they can take it away. So that's just kind of the options that we have for Richardson's ground squirrels. I don't know if you have opinions on that. If we want to just let retailers kind of do their thing with it, we can, you know, make suggestions if there's something we want to try, see if they can bring it in, and if not, we can maybe source it. I don't know what.
I'd love
your
to sit
thoughts
in
are.
on a PMRA meeting.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
When's the best time to use that foam applicator? Or that, whatever you said, the concentrate?
Yeah, that
When they're in
Rokon.
their hole.
Yeah, they have to be inside because there's special cones that you have to block their holes with so they can't escape. But it's an asphyxiant, so once it gets in there, it just takes the oxygen out of their lungs.
So like now's the best time to be doing that?
If they're out and about, I suppose. I don't know how their chambers are situated underground. Like I think they have certain sleeping chambers, so not everything could get to it. So it might work if there's a lot put in.
Does it work very good, that concentrate?
Yeah, there's escapees sometimes, so they're running around little white foam gophers that you gotta clunk over the head and stuff like that. So it's not for everybody.
By far for an applicator, the ammonia one's the best, because it
for
goes to
sure.
the bottom of their hole,
Yeah, for sure.
and it sits there. And when you go out and do it, you have lots of little green patches out in that field afterwards too. Go ahead, Connie.
Should we be formulating a letter to send to PMRA that now that strychnine is gone and these are up, that they need to consider not getting rid of everything at once? And then that'll send that to all the counties, and then that might start a flurry of letters sent to PMRA?
Possibly, yeah.
We've done that in the past and it didn't really do much, but
I think there was a letter sent, after strychnine was, that whole thing came out, that there was no viable options, like what else is effective, kind of thing, and of course, I don't know if they replied to anybody. But, yeah, we can do that.
go ahead, Shane.
Well, I never thought on February 13th I'd be out in Sunday afternoon shooting gophers, but I was yesterday.
Oh my gosh,
Couldn't believe it.
yeah,
I haven't seen any at home yet, but
I've seen
yeah, we,
for a while.
go ahead, Blaine.
I just want to say, I think, maybe we just do something in the newsletter. Like, I think education is a big thing too. Like, it looks like this Rosol will work pretty good if it's applied at the right time. I think people get, including myself, to blame. You get late on it because they are out right now. So
Yeah.
if I put something in the newsletter or whatever, and start managing these things now. Don't wait till June when the grass is green and they ain't gonna eat it anyway. So get out there in February and March when they're out and start doing it. That's just all my comment was.
okay, yeah, no, for sure.
So that's the motion then?
I can make that as a motion to, we put that in our newsletter. Awareness of the Richardson Ground Squirrel Control, start early, or however you want to word it.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay, marginal land, Blaine.
I don't know where to start exactly. I guess I'll just give a little history. I'm quite opposed to the native ground as being broke up, according to Brennan, it's not as big an issue in our country, or in our area, but I feel it's going to get that way. It's been brought to my attention that there is a farmer that's about to rent a bunch of grassland from an older fellow that's sick right now, and is going to break up about 2,000 acres south of the hills in what I call a fringe area where it's all grassland, and I was just wondering if there's something that we can start the ball rolling as the ASP here, whether it's a resolution to the RMA that we have to start controlling some of this activity. I'll just leave it up to conversation.
I don't think it's a terrible idea to take forward. I just don't know how you would word it, especially on deeded land. That's the tricky part. I mean, it's good to I think it's good to get the information out there and get something rolling.
Well, what I worry about too is, without picking on different people, or maybe whether it's Hutterites or grain farmers, and I think it's going to cause a problem down the road. Where this is going to start happening is a pretty good chance of a colony being built there at some point.
Go ahead, Shane.
Josh, I'd like your opinion on this because I know would a way of maybe getting, bringing a motion forward and then with insurance, crop insurance, that you wouldn't be able to insure marginal land. Like down in the States, a lot of that land was broken in. Now they're putting it back to grass because it's marginal. So you get into some areas where it's really sandy, really hilly, you know, it's not marginal good cropland. So if people break it and then they're always collecting crop insurance on it because it's not growing, would that be an angle to look at? Because I
think it would be hard to
Crop insurance.
enforce because there is so much marginal land, and so how would you enforce that on everybody's individual operation? I understand what you mean, that the amount of money being paid out on that marginal land, that land should be used for something else, whether it's hay production or grass. But I don't know if you could do it through AFSC. There may be something, that land, there's a reason that land was never broke. And so, you know, if there's something that you could put forward as far as a conservation thing, or, yeah, promoting the benefits of keeping it in grass. Because the land that's broke now, there's a reason it's broke. This other stuff that they're trying to break, I have no idea what they're trying to do. There's some stuff up by us too that they broke up, and it was nothing but rocks. He spent, thousands and thousands of dollars to clear the rocks off, and that land never should have been broke.
That's my wondering too, if there's some way, and obviously it's been talked about, you know, in the province, so maybe there is some way that it can be started, that we can have, whether there's a program that the government can start, you know, with a set aside of this grassland on a conversation or conservation areas.
I think a guy might be able to look into it a little bit, like
That-
SMERD does for irrigation land, where they deem land as non-irritable because of the soil type and how the land's classed. And it may be right around the same aspect, so there might be something to actually go off of there.
Because the other thing that's going to end up happening is these guys get in to start breaking this land, and then they find out, no, this isn't working. So then they leave it, and it just goes back to weeds, and, you know, for the first however many years till the native species are established again. So there's got to be something. I like your idea about the classification of the land, but if we start classifying it as too sandy, too this, too that, there'll be a lot of land that'll come out of production that way. I don't know how you go about this. Something to think about.
Maybe we should be putting forward a resolution for the next ASB conference for a classification on irritable land. And make the government come up with it.
Yeah, for sure.
And whether that's through an inspection process or however they do it, but if land's not irritable, it shouldn't be broke.
No, that's right. And it goes back to the reason why hasn't it been broke yet? And now all of a sudden that commodity prices are as high as they are, now everybody wants to break every single acre. I don't think that there's a reason it wasn't broke.
you know, on some of this land being broke, we'll go back to the erosion problems. And to that, we're starting to deal more and more with too. So I mean, it is a big concern.
Well, it's like running a plow across the ground at Hilda. It's a terrible idea, right?
That's the other thing. If from a soil conservation standpoint, if they're going to break it in a traditional method, it's going to be terrible for the soil. It's all going to blow and everything else. So.
It's definitely got to have a economic spin on it, so that if it's presented that if you break this ground, it's going to cost you this and this and this, and that'll prevent people from breaking it up, because now they know it's going to cost too much.
Well, if the guy's
It's got to have the economic benefits.
if the guy's breaking 2,000 acres, he knows what it's going to cost, and with, like I said, the
What he's going
commodity
to
prices.
recover from it.
But if he can't get insurance on it,
That's true.
then that basically what it's right now on his marginal land, there's quite a bit of insurance on it.
Yeah.
So, I'm just looking at ways to try to stop it, and instead of saying no, who's the guy to say, no, you can't break this and you can break that, and that's the problem.
I think formulating a resolution is a good idea for long-term. But this immediate problem, I don't know that we're gonna solve it.
Well, that's my point. I mean, we're obviously not gonna stop what's gonna happen in the next year to 2 to 5 years, but I think it's something that the province needs to be aware of, and obviously they are. So whether we start, and I don't know all the political things yet because I'm still learning about it, but like I said, if we can start with a resolution of some sort, just to make the government aware, the higher chain of government aware, our concerns and what we're thinking, I think it's something we need to look at.
So we got the irrigation capabilities, right? So we do erosion risk capabilities. There's a lot of people who could come up with those guidelines that I know from being in the soil survey end of it.
Braden, whoever runs this State of the Prairie workshop, can you come back with some more information about that organization? And then maybe we can formulate a resolution out of what they say, or what they have for information. If you could have a presentation just on what they're doing, and then maybe we can build our resolution off of that, because if we're just spitballing, the resolution isn't gonna be formulated properly. But if we have some background information as to what's already going on, then maybe we can build off of that for the next meeting. Or, I guess our next meeting is in March, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll contact them and see, like, if they have some kind of information or point us in a direction somewhere, or can reach out to some of the other fieldmen and just see if they know of anything, or, that too, so, yeah, we'll look into it.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think you're already thinking the same thing, which is that should be a motion to direct staff.
I'd like to make the motion that I direct staff to look into what the Prairie the Prairie Conversation Organization is doing, to bring back information for us to make a proper resolution to the government. Does that make sense?
Okay, any other comments on that? All in favor? Carried. Okay, fertilizer emissions, Conrad? Use your mic, please.
Now I can use my mic? Okay. So reading through all these letters, I think we should write a letter in support of that as well. When you look at the vegetable growers here, you start cutting back their fertilizer, for vegetable production especially, I mean canola and everything else too, but I think we need a letter in support of what everybody else is writing a letter here for.
I was actually thinking I should write one just to have it ready. I figured this was coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can have it ready for the next meeting.
Well, you can just tell her to write the letter in reference to what the other ones are saying, and we can just send it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good letters.
Okay, so you're moving that, Connie? To draft the letter and
Yes,
send
I
it
am.
off to the powers that be?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of that? Carried. Okay, anything besides what we just talked about of interest in items or information?
No, just a couple thank you cards from the people who got the bursary. What else? Oh, it was that letter, from Dr. Keith Lehman is all that I wanted to really point out, and then the rest is just other letters from the counties and that sort of thing, so a few other things for your information, but yeah, that's about it. And then next meeting, I guess, is is March the 9th okay for everybody, or that just seemed to be like a date that was gonna work when this was being tossed around here earlier?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just because it was RMA and then our regular meeting date was the 22nd, but council got moved from their regular date to that date, and then it's calving and stuff, right? So I just thought, well, I hope I can have, if I can't have ASB council, report ready, then we'll have to make a different date, but it should be ready to go then, so that's the whole reason to have it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's what I was just telling Kennedy this morning, like, it takes forever to put it together, and then I look at the, the agenda page, and it's like, oh, well, this probably isn't gonna take all that long to go through, but, yeah, okay, well, thanks.
Okay, go ahead, Josh.
Is there a report from the provincial conference? Or did you two just sit in the casino all day?
Well, she did, I was there.
Did you go rogue and make a resolution that nobody else agreed on?
Yes, she did.
No, our resolution on education, having an ag day, 95% or 94%. And then, yeah, in favor. So there was some more arguments about having the date there. Well, I only put the date on there. We only put the date on there because, so people actually know. And actually just kind of an update on the classroom agriculture program. So apparently this week we should hear from Don George about starting up again. We do want to do, they're talking about doing virtual presentations, but one of my volunteers, his kid's in grade 4 now, so he's going in person to Connaught School. So I'm thinking maybe we'll start doing some in person presentations this year. I don't know that we'll be getting printed booklets, but I think the booklets are nice, but I think the kids get just as much value as just having the person in there. And then another interesting thing, I'm just going off track here, but there was a job on Indeed that I was made aware of. The Ag in the Class is a program across Canada, and they're hiring somebody out of Canada. So they haven't had a lot in Alberta, so maybe there's going to be more with that. So they don't just, I don't think they just cover grade 4 from the job description. It looked like a whole, like every class, so every grade, I'm guessing. So I mean, that's huge if we get that in place too. But in terms of the conference, yeah, it was, the minister was there, Nate Horner, right? So yeah, it was nice to see him there. So that was in the evening, and we had a speaker that night. Who was it again?
I know you're getting old, but it was about the podcast, that lady that does the podcast.
Oh, yes. She was really good.
She was good.
Yep.
She's never been on a farm, married a farmer, and that, and like she said, started her podcast with her experience of it's not a very good idea to go out and swathing with your husband in shorts and sandals, and then all of a sudden he gives you the controls and says, see you later, and she's out there swathing and that. But it was interesting. They had a good motivation speaker, that young barrel racer out of Utah that is paralyzed and is now barrel racing. She went through all her accident that she had and what she all went through and her motivation and stuff. So it was interesting. There was a lot of good speakers this year and some not so good.
Yeah, so her movie is
Walk,
Walk, Ride, Rodeo. So it's on Netflix. So yeah, if you want to watch that movie, you can see her. So she was in an accident, paralyzed. Car accident. She rolled her truck. And so she's back to rodeoing, and she barrel races again. She's all strapped in there. So yeah, I'm just trying to find out what else there was. The chief vet guy, we saw his PowerPoint, we didn't see him. I didn't think he covered what he should have covered. He covered COVID in humans, and the talk was diseases in animals, right, or something? Yeah. So, and then we had this other lady come in. She was supposed to be kind of a comedian, but she was in by a video, and she wasn't all that great either. But the rest was good. Megan Evans was unbelievable. Like, she just talks a mile a minute, covers so much stuff. I mean, that organization has always been good, but I think she's taken on more and more. I mean, zebra mussels and the squeal on pigs, they've had to absorb a lot of what Alberta Ag used to do. And so I can see there being a lot more people employed in that organization because the amount of work that she's doing, I don't know how she does it. So, yeah, she was there in person, yeah.
I don't know if the videos are out yet of Connie getting drunk at the dance that night and dancing on the tables, the banquet.
Some interesting story about Joan from 40 Mile. So we had the last conference in Banff, right? Because it was the 50th anniversary. Anyways, Joan is around 80 years old. So her boss is the ghost at the Banff Springs. So she was a porter girl and he was the head of the porters. And so he haunts that. And she looked at the pictures and says, yeah, I used to work for that guy, like back when she was a teenager or whatever. So yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, 75? Yeah, the resolution, and then Sebastian, he was an ag fieldman, and he leads the resolution process, and like nobody gets off tangent. That process is so good with him running it. It's just unbelievable. Didn't you think it was really good? No nonsense? You were asleep. Okay. I can't remember else who talked. Then we had a panel discussion. Danny Hooper was hilarious as always. Report card. Rural community emergency preparedness. What was that about? I can't remember now. The floods. They were talking about the floods and the animals. Yeah, I don't know. The county probably has that all in hand here about what happens when, because we've had a few disasters. Yeah, squeal on pigs, resolution session. That which kills you doesn't make you funnier. Yeah, that wasn't that funny. Anyways, yeah, it was a kind of a short program compared to what we're used to. That's my report. Anything you want to add, Shane? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else to come before the meeting? If not, I'll adjourn it at noon o'clock.